The water was black and still, reflecting the eerie silence of the night like a mirror to the abyss below. Somewhere behind her, the largest ship ever built was sliding into the Atlantic, its massive hull groaning under the weight of impending doom. Madeleine Force Astor gripped an oar with bare hands, her fingers numb from the cold yet driven by sheer determination to survive. She was 18 years old, a young woman thrust into the heart of catastrophe far too soon in her fragile life. She was 5 months pregnant, carrying a precious life within her that added an extra layer of urgency to every desperate stroke. And the richest man in America, the man who had placed her in this lifeboat, was already gone, swallowed by the merciless sea. That was April 1912. A date etched forever in history as the night when dreams and destinies shattered on the unforgiving ocean. What followed was not a fairy tale of survival, but a tangled web of triumphs, heartbreaks, and relentless societal scrutiny. It was something far more complicated, filled with layers of emotion, inheritance disputes, and personal reinvention. Over the next 28 years, Madeleine would carry 3 different last names, each marking a new chapter in her tumultuous journey. She would inherit millions and give them away for love, sacrificing vast fortunes in pursuit of genuine happiness. She would marry a childhood friend, then an Italian prizefighter who broke her bones, navigating relationships from tender to brutal. She would be celebrated, pitied, gossiped about, and finally forgotten, her story fading into the shadows of time, dying alone in a Florida mansion at 46, her final moments shrouded in quiet solitude, far from the glamour that once surrounded her. This is the story of the woman the world called Mrs. Astor, a name that carried both prestige and profound burdens, not the famous one, the other one, the lesser-known figure whose life intersected with one of America's most iconic tragedies, the teenager who walked into the most powerful family in America, survived the worst maritime disaster, and paid for both. If this is the kind of story you value, take a moment to subscribe, as your support helps preserve these forgotten narratives. It helps more than you might think, enabling deeper research and more detailed storytelling for audiences like you. Her name was Madeleine Force, and long before she ever set foot on the Titanic, she was already somebody worth knowing. Chapter 1. The Girl from Brooklyn, where her roots shaped a resilient spirit amid the bustling energy of a rapidly growing city. Madeleine Force was born on June 19, 1893 in Brooklyn, New York, entering a world of profound change and opportunity. Her father, William Hurlburt Force, ran a shipping and forwarding firm from an office at 78 Front Street in Lower Manhattan. The company, William H. Force and Company, established in 1873, thrived near the East River docks amid the constant flow of cargo. Her mother, Catherine Arvilla Talmadge, came from Old Brooklyn stock, a lineage steeped in civic duty and historical significance. Catherine's grandfather, Thomas G. Talmadge, served as mayor of Brooklyn in the 1840s, overseeing Brooklyn City Hall's construction. Her father, Tunis V.P. Talmadge, had been a New York State Assemblyman, contributing to laws and policies that shaped the region. The family was not new money. They were settled, connected, and deeply woven into the social fabric of the city. William Force collected club memberships, building networks that enhanced his influence and status. He was a director of the Staten Island Rapid Transit Railroad and the United States Casualty Company. He sat on the New York Board of Trade and Transportation, influencing decisions impacting the city's economic growth. He kept an art collection at the family home, first on Remsen Street in Brooklyn Heights, later on East 37th Street in Manhattan. The move was deliberate, a calculated step to elevate their standing in a society that valued location as much as lineage. Brooklyn society was respectable, offering a solid base of community, but lacked the glittering allure of higher echelons. Manhattan society was powerful, pulsating with the energy of tycoons, innovators, and cultural icons who defined the era. The forces were climbing, steadily ascending the social ladder through ambition, connections, and strategic decisions. They were not, however, anywhere near the top, still separated by barriers of wealth and exclusivity. The Force name did not appear on the guest lists that mattered most in Gilded Age Manhattan. Those exclusive invitations, they occupied a respectable middle tier, wealthy enough for private schools and European travel, prominent enough for the better clubs. That distinction mattered in the New York of the 1890s, where hierarchies were rigid and every social interaction carried weight. It would matter even more when Madeleine's name began appearing alongside one of those dynasties, thrusting her into a spotlight. Madeleine had one sibling, an older sister named Catherine Emmons Force, born in 1891, who who became her closest confidant. The two were close in age and inseparable in public, often appearing together, embodying sibling harmony. Newspaper columnists would later describe them as the two Graces, a nod to their looks and easy command of a drawing room. Both were raised Episcopalian, the same denomination as the Astor family. A coincidence aligning unknowingly with future alliances. Madeleine's education followed the path expected of a girl in her position, emphasizing refinement, knowledge, and society's demands. She attended Miss Ely's school in Greenwich, Connecticut, then Miss Spence's school in Manhattan, nurturing young women of promise. She stayed for years, immersing herself in studies that honed her intellect and social skills. She was counted an especially brilliant pupil, excelling in academics and demonstrating a sharp mind that set her apart. This set her apart from the merely decorative debutantes who filled parlors, highlighting her depth beyond surface beauty. Her mother took both daughters abroad, exposing them to cultures and experiences that broadened their horizons. They toured Europe, including an extended stay in Paris, where they absorbed art, fashion, and sophistication. Madeleine was described as a sweet girl who loved animals, spoke French well, and had a talent for conversation. Madeleine Force was raising women who could operate on either side of the Atlantic, equipped with versatility and grace. Back in New York, Madeleine rode horses with real skill, mastering equestrian pursuits that demanded discipline and courage. She sailed, navigating waters with confidence and enjoying the freedom of the open sea. She appeared in amateur theatrical productions, drawing attention wherever she went, her presence captivating audiences. Tall, dark-haired, she carried herself with a poise that made people forget she was still a teenager. On December 22, 1910, she was formally presented to New York society as a debutante. She was 17, stepping into a realm of balls, introductions, and potential alliances with excitement. The Junior League, a selective circle of young women, brought her in, recognizing her potential and pedigree. She was seen at the right gatherings, charity functions, and summer retreats like Bar Harbor and Newport. By the close of that winter, Madeleine Force had everything a young woman of her station could have expected. Good schools behind her, good connections around her, no scandal, nothing that would cause a columnist to write more than a polite paragraph that would change before the year was out, as fate prepared to intertwine her path with unparalleled wealth and tragedy. Chapter 2. The richest man in America, whose life of privilege and innovation would soon collide with hers. The estate was called Ferncleef, a sprawling property that symbolized the pinnacle of opulence and seclusion. It sat on 1.5 miles of Hudson River frontage in Rhinebeck, New York, surrounded by farmland and forest. And it was there, on July 13, 1864, that John Jacob Astor IV entered the world. Born into a legacy of immense fortune and influence, he was the youngest of 5 children and the only son. The name he carried was not just a family name, it was a brand, synonymous with unparalleled success and American ambition. His great-grandfather, the original John Jacob Astor, had arrived from Germany in the 1780s with almost nothing. Through the fur trade, real estate, and a cold instinct for opportunity, he built an empire from scratch. The elder Astor had become the wealthiest man in the United States by the time of his death in 1848. The fortune passed down through generations, growing with each transfer through wise investments and expansions. By the time it reached John Jacob IV, the Astor name was synonymous with American money itself. His mother, Caroline, was arguably more famous than his father, wielding social authority with unmatched precision. As the self-appointed queen of New York society, she defined the rules of admission for the Gilded Age elite. Her ballroom at the family mansion could hold exactly 400 guests, and the list became known simply as the 400. If Caroline Astor did not approve of you, you did not exist in polite society. Her influence extending far beyond invitations. She was imperious, methodical, and absolute, ruling with a velvet glove over iron will. Her son grew up watching power exercised not through banks or boardrooms, but through guest lists and dinner placements. John Jacob attended St. Paul's School in Concord, New Hampshire, then Harvard, receiving an education befitting his status. After graduating, he spent several years traveling abroad before returning to manage the family's vast real estate holdings, but he was not content to simply collect rents. He sought innovation and creation in his endeavors. In 1897, he built the Astoria Hotel on the site of his mother's former mansion, next to the Waldorf Hotel. The two buildings were joined by Peacock Alley, and the combined Waldorf Astoria became the most famous hotel in the country. He later built the St. Regis Hotel, considered his finest achievement, blending elegance with modern amenities. He was also improbably an inventor and a novelist, pursuits that reveal the creative mind beyond business acumen. He patented a bicycle brake, a vibratory disintegrator, and a pneumatic road improver, showcasing his mechanical ingenuity. He helped develop an early turbine engine, contributing to advancements in engineering and technology. In 1894, he published a science fiction novel titled A Journey in Other Worlds, envisioning futuristic explorations. Critics were not kind, but the book sold largely because of who had written it, adding to his multifaceted reputation. When the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898, Astor did not sit it out. He actively contributed to the effort. He financed an entire artillery battery, donated his yacht, and served as a lieutenant colonel in Cuba. The rank of colonel stuck with him afterward as a social title, and for the rest of his life, he was known as Colonel Astor. Yachting consumed much of his leisure. He raced boats and offered trophies to the New York Yacht Club. He kept homes at 845th Avenue in Manhattan and at Ferncliff in Rhinebeck, New York. And he maintained Beechwood, the Astor summer cottage in Newport, Rhode Island, a seasonal retreat. His fortune at the time of his death would be estimated at roughly $87 million, nearly $3 billion in today's money. He was by most measures the wealthiest man in America, a title that brought both admiration and envy. Those who knew him described a man who was reserved in public, formal in his manners, and difficult to read. He was not gregarious like the Vanderbilts, or theatrical like the Goulds. His demeanor was one of quiet authority. Astor kept his emotions behind a wall of protocol. He rarely gave interviews, preferring privacy over the spotlight. The newspapers tracked his movements, investments, and private life with the relentless appetite that came with covering him. And by 1910, he was also divorced, restless, and about to make the worst decision of his social life. Chapter 3. The first Mrs. Astor, whose story set the stage for the controversies that followed in the family's legacy. Before Madeleine, there was Ava, a woman of striking beauty and formidable heritage who entered the Astor world. Ava Lowell Willing came from Philadelphia from a family whose American roots ran deeper than the Astors. Her ancestors included Thomas Willing, first president of the First Bank of the United States, and Edward Shippen. The Willings were not merely rich, they were founding stock, the kind of family that did not need to prove anything. She was born on September 15, 1868, and by her early 20s, she was considered one of the great beauties of her generation. Contemporary accounts called her divinely beautiful. She was tall, poised, and carried the confidence of a woman. On February 17, 1891, she married John Jacob Astor at her parents' mansion in Philadelphia. She was 22, he was 26. It was one of the most prominent society weddings of the decade. The marriage produced 2 children. William Vincent Astor was born in November 1891. A daughter, Ava Alice Muriel, followed more than a decade later in July 1902. Between those 2 births, and arguably before the first, the union began to rot, strained by incompatible personalities. The problem was not money. The Astors had more than anyone could reasonably spend. The problem was temperament. Ava was sharp, social, and restless, thriving in the spotlight and craving engagement. She craved attention and gathered it effortlessly in every room she entered, her charisma drawing admirers. Jack Astor, by contrast, was withdrawn and stiff, a man who preferred his inventions and his yacht. Ava found him dull. Worse, she found him embarrassing, her dissatisfaction growing steadily and openly. According to people who knew them both, she mocked him openly, calling him stupid in front of guests. He endured it for years, maintaining composure amid the private humiliations that accumulated. By 1896, Ava had established a second life in England, distancing herself geographically and emotionally. She kept a townhouse on Grosvenor Square in Mayfair and a country estate, immersing herself in British high society. She moved through British aristocratic circles with ease, attending events her husband rarely joined. The Atlantic Ocean became a convenient barrier between them, allowing separate lives under the guise of marriage. For long stretches, they lived on different continents, married in name only, their union reduced to a public facade. Rumors followed her everywhere. London society whispered about her closeness with certain men. What was clear to everyone was that the Astors' marriage had become a performance. In November 1909, Ava filed for divorce. The proceedings moved quickly, reflecting a mutual desire for a clean break. On March 5, 1910, the state of New York decreed in her favor, officially ending a fractured union. The settlement was $10 million, an extraordinary sum that reflected the Astor fortune. Ava retained custody of their 7-year-old daughter, Muriel. Vincent stayed with his father. Vincent took the divorce hard. He was 18, old enough to understand the public humiliation. He resented his mother for her cruelty toward his father, and the resentment would harden over the years. He also developed a fierce protectiveness over the Astor name and fortune, a vigilance that would have consequences. Ava, for her part, moved on decisively. She returned to London permanently, and in 1919 married Thomas Lister. She became Lady Ribblesdale, traded American society for English aristocracy, and never looked back. She outlived nearly everyone involved in this story, dying in New York in 1958 at the age of 89. The divorce freed Jack Astor from a marriage that had made him miserable, but it also marked him socially. In the New York of 1910, divorce was still deeply controversial, particularly among the Episcopalian establishment. Many prominent families refused to acknowledge divorced men socially. The clergy viewed remarriage as a moral failing. Astor had escaped one trap only to walk into another. He was 45 years old, one of the wealthiest men alive. It was in that condition, isolated and bruised, that he first noticed a 17-year-old girl at Bar Harbor. Chapter 4. The Scandal of the Century. A whirlwind of controversy that captivated the nation and tested societal norms. Nobody remembers exactly when Colonel Astor first noticed Madeleine Force, but their encounter sparked a profound connection. In September 1910, he hosted her family at his Bar Harbor estate, a gesture hinting at deeper intentions. She was 17, he, 46. His recent divorce added layers of complexity and scandal to their budding romance. That weekend set something in motion, igniting a relationship destined for intense public scrutiny. Astor courted Madeleine with grand gestures and carefully arranged private outings, befitting his position. He took her on automobile rides through the countryside, moments of intimacy in luxurious settings. They also enjoyed trips aboard his yacht, secluded from prying eyes. Reporters followed them constantly. Photographers waited outside restaurants, capturing every detail. Every meeting was documented, every glance interpreted, fueling endless speculation in the press. By spring 1911, the press and public had already decided what they thought, opinions forming rapidly and harshly. On August 2, 1911, the New York Times made it official: Colonel Astor to wed Madeleine Force. She was 18, he 47. His son, Vincent, close in age to Madeleine, created familial tensions. The reaction was immediate and savage. Newspapers across the country treated the engagement as a moral emergency. The Cincinnati Enquirer described the romance as one of wicked lust, stirring public outrage. The Washington Times wrote that 18-year-old Madeleine Force has a difficult task ahead. Editorial cartoonists drew Astor as a predatory old man chasing a child, amplifying the scandal's impact. Society columnists, once reverent, now competed to express the most pointed disgust. It was not just the age gap, it was the divorce, amplifying controversy in religious circles. In Episcopalian New York, a divorced man remarrying was still considered a disgrace. Several prominent Episcopal ministers refused to perform the ceremony, citing moral objections. Astor's search for a willing clergyman became a story, days passing without agreement. Edwin S. Strait, a former preacher working as a carpenter, was approached, briefly agreeing before pressure mounted. Rumors circulated that Astor would pay thousands to find anyone willing to officiate. On September 9, 1911, Reverend Joseph Lambert married them in the Beechwood Ballroom. It was 9:55 a.m. Madeleine wore a simple blue cloth dress with a peach basket hat. Her father, William Force, gave her away. Her sister, Catherine, served as maid of honor. Vincent Astor, despising the match, stood as best man, fulfilling his duty despite reservations. No society guests, no elaborate reception. The wedding was conducted in near secrecy. Minutes later, the newlyweds boarded Astor's yacht, the Noma, escaping Newport's prying eyes. As the boat pulled away, its wireless operator received congratulatory messages, blending well wishes with gossip. Astor released a statement: "Now that we are happily married, I do not care how difficult divorce laws are made." He believed remarriage should be possible once, as marriage is the happiest condition for the individual. It was a confident statement, reflecting his defiance against convention, despite weeks of searching for a clergyman. Whatever relief he felt, it did not last. New York society did not forgive or forget. The doors always open to Colonel Astor remained firmly shut, a social ostracism that stung deeply. The solution, as for disgraced aristocrats, was to leave, seeking respite far from judgmental eyes. Chapter 5. Egypt, Paris, and a fateful decision. A period of exile blending adventure with unforeseen peril. After the wedding, the Astors sailed west on the Noma to Rhinecliff, then south to Bermuda. It was a quiet start, hoping for peace, waiting for gossip columns to find a different target. They did not. By November 1911, the press reported the Astors planned an extended trip to Egypt. The timing was strategic. Egypt was far enough to offer a temporary haven from New York society. In January 1912, they sailed from New York aboard the RMS Olympic, bound for Europe and the Nile. They traveled with a small entourage, ensuring comfort and assistance in foreign lands. And Kitty, Astor's Airedale Terrier, who nearly went missing during the Egyptian leg of the trip. In Egypt, the Astors toured the Nile, visited the pyramids, and moved through Cairo's colonial hotel circuit. There, they encountered Margaret Brown, a wealthy Colorado socialite, recently separated from her husband. Brown was brash, independent, and unbothered by their scandal, offering friendship without judgment. She would later become one of the most famous Titanic survivors, the unsinkable Molly Brown. In January 1912, she was simply a friendly face, one of few Americans willing to spend time with them. Even in Egypt, their reputation followed. American tourists recognized them, European papers reprinted coverage, but distance softened the attention. They were simply a rich couple on holiday, not the scandal of the season. For Madeleine, it may have been the most peaceful stretch of her married life, a brief interlude of tranquility. It would certainly be the last, as events conspired to end this idyll abruptly and tragically. From Egypt, the couple moved to Paris. Astor bought jewelry for Madeleine at Cartier. They attended the theater, living for a few months the life obscene wealth could provide. It was during this stretch, likely in late February or early March, that Madeleine realized she was pregnant. The pregnancy changed everything. Madeleine wanted the child born in the United States. There were legal considerations around citizenship and inheritance, and a desire for familiar doctors. The honeymoon, stretching past 5 months, was suddenly over. The Astors needed to get home. They booked first-class passage on the newest and largest ship in the world, a luxurious and safe decision. The RMS Titanic was making her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York, promising unmatched comfort. The Astors boarded there on April 10, 1912, stepping onto the ship that would define Madeleine's life. Their suite on sea deck was among the most luxurious, featuring opulent furnishings and a private promenade. Madeleine was visibly pregnant, requiring constant care as they moved. She spent most of the crossing in their cabin, occasionally walking the deck with Astor and Kitty. She kept to herself, tired and ready to be home, longing for stability after months of travel. For 4 days, nothing happened. The ship was smooth, the weather clear, the Atlantic calm. That changed on the evening of April 14th, when disaster struck with sudden, catastrophic force. Chapter 6. The night of April 14th, a harrowing sequence of events unfolding into history's greatest maritime tragedy. At 11:40 p.m., on April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg, a glancing but fatal collision. Most passengers felt only a faint tremor. Others slept through it, unaware of the peril. Colonel Astor did not. He rose immediately, dressed quickly, and sought Captain Edward Smith. When he returned, Madeleine recalled, his face was graver, betraying the seriousness beneath his calm words. The ship had struck ice, he told her, but there was no danger. Attempting to reassure her, he helped her into warm clothing and strapped her life jacket over her coat with steady hands. For 2 hours, the Astors moved between the boat deck and the first-class gymnasium. It was a surreal scene, 2 of America's most photographed people on stationary horses. Astor was overheard saying they were safer on board than in one of those small boats. He found a spare life jacket, slid it open to show Madeleine the cork inside, ensuring she would float. Madeleine later said he was the calmest person on deck, his composure a beacon amid the panic. She noticed a third-class woman, Leah Ackus, holding an infant, Philip, in the bitter cold. Madeleine took off her fur shawl and gave it to the woman to wrap around the baby. It was a small act, rarely mentioned, but revealing of who she was at just 18 years old. Around 1:45 a.m., Second Officer Charles Leitler arrived to finish loading lifeboat number 4. The boat hung level with the enclosed promenade windows, ready for final boarding. Passengers had to climb over a 4-foot railing and through the frames, a dangerous maneuver. Among the families gathered were the Wideners, Thayers, and Carters, assisting women and children first. Archibald Gracie later testified about what happened next, providing a clear eyewitness account. He described lifting Madeleine over the railing. Astor held her left arm as they passed her to life. Astor leaned out and asked permission to join his wife, explaining her delicate condition. Lightler refused. No men were permitted until all women and children had been taken off. Astor did not argue. He asked only for the lifeboat number so he could find her afterward. Then he stepped back, accepting his fate with quiet dignity and composure. Hilda Slater described seeing Astor take out his cigarette case with perfect composure. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the railing, maintaining his calm exterior as the ship tilted. Some accounts say he tossed his gloves down to Madeleine, a poignant, final farewell gesture. The last words she heard him speak were a promise that he would meet her in the morning. He did not. Lifeboat 4 pulled away, carrying Madeleine into the dark ocean as the ship faltered. On April 15, 1912, the RMS Titanic, a marvel of engineering, met its tragic end in the icy North Atlantic. Over 1,500 lives were lost, including Colonel John Jacob Astor Ivy, one of the world's wealthiest men. His young wife Madeleine, pregnant and traumatized, was rescued by the Carpathia, her memories clouded by horror. Arriving in New York, Madeleine faced a new reality, meeting Vincent Astor, her late husband's son. Colonel Astor's will, drafted before the voyage, laid out the terms of her future, a future bound by wealth. The vast Astor estate was divided, with Vincent receiving the lion's share, and Madeleine's inheritance carefully defined. She received $100,000 outright, an annual income from a $5 million trust, and use of properties. But a crucial clause dictated, remarriage meant losing everything, a golden cage. Indeed, Vincent, who had opposed her marriage to his father, now held significant power over her fate. Her unborn child was provided for with a $3 million trust, ensuring a future for the Titanic baby. The public saw Madeleine as rich but not free, maintained by the Astor family under Vincent's watchful eye. After arriving in New York, Madeleine retreated from public life, seeking solace in seclusion. Her first public appearance was a private luncheon, honoring the heroes of the Carpathia. On August 14, 1912, 4 months after his father's death, John Jacob Astor Titanic was born. The media's fascination with the Titanic baby was immense, a symbol of tragedy and hope. Madeleine remained secluded for over a year, avoiding social events, protecting her son and herself. Her first public photograph after 20 months renewed public interest, a glimpse into her private world. She accepted her label as Mrs. John Jacob Astor, the Titanic widow, a title that defined her. Remodeling her Fifth Avenue house, she signaled permanence within her golden cage, a life of luxury. The press continued to cover young Jakey's milestones, keeping the Astor name in the public eye. Madeleine's life was stable but narrow, between Fifth Avenue and Beechwood, with her son and sister. Despite her immense wealth, she realized she lacked true freedom, a poignant truth. In 1915, William Carl Dick, a wealthy 28-year-old from her social circles, re-entered her life. Their rekindled acquaintance was noticed by the press, sparking rumors and speculation. Madeleine made a life-altering choice to remarry in early 1916. Understanding the immense financial cost, she forfeited $3,571,036 due to the remarriage clause, a calculated sacrifice for love. Her quiet marriage to William Carl Dick on June 22, 1916, contrasted sharply with her first. It was a choice for love and freedom over fortune, a bold statement in her Gilded Age world. The media quantified her sacrifice, but Madeleine became Mrs. Dick, free from the Astor name. Their life together included a New York residence, Allen Wyndon Farm, and summers in Maine. The birth of their 2 sons, William Force Dick and John Henry Dick, expanded their family. Jakey grew close to his stepfather, William Dick, who treated him as his own son. William's career provided Madeleine with quiet respite from public scrutiny, a welcome change. By her 30s, Madeleine's life was largely ignored by newspapers, finding a semblance of normalcy. However, by the early 1930s, the marriage fractured, leading to a new chapter. Madeleine divorced William Dick in Reno, Nevada, in 1933, at the age of 40. Soon after, she met Enzo Formonti, a 25-year-old Italian professional boxer, on a cruise ship. Their quick romance and significant age gap became fodder for the press. Madeleine's shoulder injury led to a hospital admission, where their marriage took an unusual turn. On November 27, 1933, they married in a quiet civil ceremony, right there in the hospital. Jacob, now a young man, openly disapproved of his mother's new marriage. Their life together included Palm Beach and the purchase of Dixie Plantation in Charleston. Melanie provided for Monty with a generous allowance, fueling his flamboyant lifestyle. Their marriage was stormy, marked by intense passion, bitter estrangement, and fragile reconciliations. For Monty even taught Madeleine's sons to box, a curious blend of their worlds. Madeleine filed for divorce in May 1938, citing extreme cruelty, ending their tumultuous union. The divorce was granted in June 1938, and Madeleine reverted to calling herself Mrs. Dick. Monty returned to Italy, pursuing a career in acting, leaving Madeleine to her own path. Madeleine retreated to Palm Beach, resuming the name Mrs. Dick, seeking peace and quiet. Her sons forged their own paths, away from the intense public spotlight that had defined her life. Her increasing reclusiveness and declining health marked her final years. The death of her mother in August 1939, followed by her Palm Beach home destroyed by fire. Madeleine died on March 27, 1940, at age 46, officially from heart disease. Speculation about an overdose of sleeping pills lingered, though no investigation occurred. Her funeral at St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in New York was attended by 1,500 people. She was buried at Trinity Church Cemetery in a mausoleum with her mother. Madeleine's modest estate at her death contrasted sharply with her public scrutiny. Jacob, resembling his father, pursued his education at Harvard, carrying the Astor legacy. His $3 million trust fund grew to nearly $5 million, securing his financial future. Vincent Astor's continued contempt for Jacob, questioning his biological lineage, cast a long shadow. Jacob's 4 marriages reflected a complex personal life, echoing his mother's choices. Vincent Astor's death in 1959, leaving his estate to his third wife, Brooke Astor, sparked a legal battle. Jacob sued Brooke, arguing Vincent's mental incompetence, leading to a settlement of $250,000. Madeleine's other sons, William Force Dick and John Henry Dick, led quieter, distinguished lives. Jacob's death in 1992, buried near his mother, brought his complex life to a close. Colonel Astor's gold watch, recovered from the Titanic, became a record-breaking auction item in 2024. Madeleine's life, an 18-year-old from Brooklyn, forever changed by the Titanic and the Astor name. Her story is a testament to resilience, choice, and the enduring legacy of a woman navigating a gilded, yet challenging, world.